everyone, and welcome to a very spooky edition of ASMR today, ready for Halloween. I've been looking at the subreddit letsnotmeet, and I found 4 true stories that have happened to people in real life, sort of horror stories that I thought I would read out today so that we can all get scared and frightened this Halloween, and maybe we can have a good time. So our first story is being posted by user Pochoiset Revontule. Sorry if I have mispronounced your name. I probably have. The title of the story is "I'm convinced she tried to drown me." This happened when I was still a child, so some of the details are pretty hazy, like my exact age when this happened. Not far from where I lived as a child, there is a place where one of the local rivers cascades over an old weir, and it's a really beautiful spot to bathe and swim during summer. The water upstream from the weir is nice and calm. The river has a lot of fish and lots of pretty flowers on the riverbanks. There is even a small kiosk and a place where you can rent paddle boats. If the weather is nice, there are usually a lot of people of all ages, picnicking, sunbathing, swimming, fishing, and just hanging out. Families, couples, teenagers, seniors, everybody likes to go there. When I was a kid, my mum would also take me there pretty often, and it was always a lot of fun. Usually I wanted to play in the water for hours, and my mum would quickly retire to our picnic blanket and pick up a book. I could already swim fairly well by age 6, but she still watched me closely when I was younger, so I would estimate that I was about 8 when this happened, but no older than 11. It was a beautiful warm summer day at the river. My mum was reading her book, and she let me explore the area and go swimming on my own. As was normal on days like these, there were a lot of people, and especially a lot of teenagers at the crest of the weir where most people entered the water. I'm afraid I don't remember the details of how it happened, but I sort of befriended one of the teenage girls there. She was there on her own, and since I was still really young, I thought she was so mature and cool, basically just for being an older girl who was doing things on her own. No idea how old she really was, as everybody who is older than you at this age is just old, but looking back, I guess she would be between 14 and 16. She was really nice to me and seemed to enjoy hanging out with me, and I got to feel like I had an older sister for a while, which was nice. We spent some time exploring the riverbanks, diving, watching fish, and chasing each other around. At one point, we ended up at a spot where the water was about chest high for my friend and neck high for me, close to a group of other teenage girls who were about the same age as my new friend. I noticed one of them seemed really reluctant to get into the water and complained that it was freezing. I was still a pretty loud-mouthed and brash child at the time, a far cry from how I am now, and also I was really proud of my clearly superior swimming skills. So I turned to my friend and said something pretty harmless about the girl being a big wuss, or something like that. I wasn't loud, but she heard. Her head snapped up and she immediately jumped into the water and came at me shouting, "What did you say? What did you say about me?" I was freaked out right away because her reaction was so sudden, and she seemed so enraged in a way that was disproportionate to what I had said. I opened my mouth to defend myself myself somehow and maybe de-escalate, but before I even know what was happening, she had grabbed me and pushed me underwater. I struggled for a moment and she let me come up again. I think I heard my friend protest in the background, but I was mostly concerned with this girl who still had a death grip on both of my shoulders. She stared at me with a look that made me really uncomfortable, like she was fighting with herself or trying to control herself. "What did you say to me?" She screamed at me. Scared as I was, I resented how helpless I felt and that I was being humiliated in front of this cool girl that I had befriended, so I resolved not to show any weakness. You know, this obnoxious thing that some children do when someone tells them off and they just start giggling and laughing like they are laughing at you because they don't want anyone to see that they feel bad. I did that. I laughed right in her face, and right away she forced me underwater again and held me down for quite a lot longer than the first time. When she let me come up this time, she screamed right in my face, "You think this is funny? You like that? You want to laugh at me, you little bitch?" I was coughing up water by this point and drooling all over myself, but I didn't know what else to do to say to make her stop. The only thought I had left in my head was that I couldn't show weakness, so I laughed at her again. I may or may not have made another remark to the effect that, unlike her, I didn't mind a little water. What I distinctly remember and will remember forever is her eyes in that moment. It's hard to describe, but the closest I can get is by telling you that something seemed to leave her eyes. Some spark, or whatever you would want to call it, that a normal, sane person has. It just flickered and went out. It suddenly looked like her eyes were just two pieces of hard, painted glass stuck in her face, and there was nothing behind them. I would have apologized then and begged her just to leave me alone, but I was too late. She grabbed me by the throat and by the hair and pushed me underwater again. I struggled as hard as I could, swirling up mud from the riverbed, grabbing at pebbles, but it didn't help. I thought surely she will let me up any moment now. She just wants to scare me really bad. But I was running out of air quickly, and her grip on my throat did not ease up even a little bit. I tried scratching at her arm, but I was starting to lose any sense of where up or down was and what I was grabbing at. When I opened my eyes, everything was just muddy brown and full of bubbles. I realized I was going to drown right here. I was actually being killed by this complete stranger while the sun was shining peacefully and we were surrounded by happy families, and nobody realized what was happening. I'm grateful I don't remember fully what that felt like. When I try to think back to that moment, I just get this feeling of utter helplessness and loneliness. And then suddenly I was breathing air. I was completely disoriented, coughing and puking up water, and there was a lot of shouting around me. My friend was holding me above water and shouting in the direction of the group of girls who were forcefully leading my attacker away, while she was screaming at me and my friend, while her friends were screaming at her. It was just a lot of noise in general, and I have no recollection of what anyone was saying. I was busy enjoying the air again. After I had calmed down somewhat, my new friend apologized for stepping in so late, saying that she and the other girls took a moment to process what was actually happening before they started trying to pull my attacker off me. It took all of their efforts combined to get her to let me go. I was deeply, deeply shaken sure that she had attempted to murder me then and there. I just knew from the look in her eyes. But still trying to save face for my friend, I tried to laugh it off. I did a lousy job because I was shivering all over and my voice was trembling. I don't know if my friend had realised at any point how serious the situation actually was, or if she thought she was just stopping some bullying. But whatever she thought, she bought me ice cream and rented us a paddle boat to cheer me up and watched some birds, and I am grateful to her for that, and for saving my life. But to be really honest, my day was kind of ruined. I never saw my attacker or the nice teenage girl again after that day, and I said nothing to my mum because I was so embarrassed about what had happened to me. But that, and some other things that happened to me later, cost me most of the confident attitude that I had as a child, and I am now a very shy and cautious person. So, to the girl who is willing to murder children over some harmless teasing, let's never meet again, please. The next story in our list of 4 true horror stories tonight is called Online Fan Turned Stalker, and it was posted by user Poppy June. I've never posted to this subreddit before, but after working with the authorities, I feel safe enough to share my story. For context, I, a 20-year-old female, started an OnlyFans account over the summer to support myself through school, and things were great until I posted my Amazon wish list. Amazon doesn't release your address to people who gift you items, but third-party sellers can, and that's where I went wrong. By the way, I'm not trying to promote it here. This is a very frightening story, and I felt like it should be shared. In late July, I got a puppy. One night, at around 2 a.m, I took him outside to go to the bathroom. While he was doing his business, I noticed a car parked outside my family home. I saw a figure in the car and could tell they were looking at me, but I couldn't make out their face because it was pitch black. Feeling a bit uneasy, I picked up my puppy to take him back inside, and when I started to move, the car parked in my driveway. I sprinted back inside and locked the door, but they never approached my house. The next morning, I went to check the mail. There was an envelope addressed to my OnlyFans name with $20 in it, but no note. I was currently still at home with my parents, who had no idea about my OnlyFans account, so I didn't mention it to them. A week later, I moved back to my college town to get ready to start school. At this time, I had stopped posting for the time being until I could figure out how they got my address. I'd watched enough crime shows to know that there was a possibility that I could be in danger. I live in a duplex with a gated parking lot for reference. One morning, I was planning on vlogging my trip to Target because I was planning on starting a YouTube channel in the near future, since OnlyFans felt unsafe. When I got to my car, it had been ransacked and my vlogging camera was missing. I know, it's my fault for leaving it in my car, but I was using it the night before, and since I lived in a gated area, I didn't think it would be unsafe. It wasn't in plain sight either. I had hidden it in my glove box. I used that camera to film my content, and the SD card that was in there had all of my unreleased photos and videos. I know they stole it for the SD card. Anyways, this is where the story gets weird. There are cameras outside in the parking lot, so we were able to watch this person break into my car and find the camera. They didn't touch any of the 7 other cars in the parking lot. They knew which car was mine, which suggests they got the camera, they walked around the duplex until stopping near my window. My bedroom faces the outside street, and my blinds are broken, so it's very easy to see in. I have a curtain, but it doesn't cover my window all the way. This person watched me sleep for hours. I have no idea why they didn't try to break in, but thank God they didn't. This person then sold the camera to a pawn shop, and since I knew the serial number, the police were able to find it. However, my SD card was missing. I believe the police were still trying to track them down, but I have broken my lease and moved to a new place, so hopefully that will keep me safe. To the guy who terrorized me at my home and apartment and stole my camera, let's not meet. I think this next story is actually my favorite of this group of 4 stories. This one was posted by user The Deepest Regrets, and it is entitled Just a Nice Christmas Eve Drive. This happened over 20 years ago. I was driving back home with my girlfriend at the time. It was Christmas Eve, and my mother's family used to hold a large celebration at my aunt's house in Estacada. This was my girlfriend's first time meeting my extended family, but she got on quite well with them. We spent the majority of the afternoon and the evening talking, playing poker, opening presents, and drinking an assortment of adult beverages. My girlfriend had been quite inebriated by the time we had to leave, so therefore I drove us home. It was around 11 p.m. or so. I was driving my girlfriend's car back along Highway 211. Now, this stretch of road is surrounded by farms and dense patches of forest, and parts of it are unlit. But nothing to fear. I grew up in this area, so I knew this road like the back of my hand. The both of us were just driving and talking away, just 2 young lovers making the most of our moments together. There is a portion of the highway that descends down an enormous hill before crossing a deep creek. Surrounding both sides of the road are thick forests. There are no lights. The only thing we could see was the area directly in front of our headlights. I drove down the hill, crossed the bridge and uphill through more forest. It's as the highway starts to flatten out that it happened. Something sprints across the road so suddenly that I almost hit whatever it was. I slam on the brakes. I turn to my girlfriend and ask her if she saw it. She confirmed that she had, but she couldn't make out what it was. Maybe it was a coyote, as they are a fairly common sight in this area, but something felt off about it. Whatever it was that ran in front of the car disappeared into the woods next to the road. Coyotes don't usually just dart out in front of cars. Not like that anyway. So for some reason, I decide to check it out. I turn the car around and switch on the high beams to better light up the forest in which this thing had vanished. I step out of the car and walk towards the woods. I don't see anything, but now it feels like perhaps I've made a grave error. My heart is pounding. The hairs on the back of my neck are standing up at full attention, but I still don't see anything unusual in the trees. Suddenly, the car's horn blasts. It's not a beep 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 that you'd get if, say, your driver or passenger wanted you to hurry up and get in the car. No, this was a long, blaring beep. I walked back into the car and asked my girlfriend why she was a man. He was completely naked. His skin was covered in dirt and mud, and in one of his hands he was holding a hatchet. He looked back at us, and then he smiled and waved to us just before turning around and walking back into the forest. Needless to say, we got the hell out of there. Once we were safely driving again, my girlfriend explained what had just happened. While I was trying to look for the man in the area he initially vanished in, he circled back around and came out from another spot in the forest beyond my car headlights. My girlfriend had seen something out of the corner of her eye, and that's when she saw him. Before she honked the horn, he was walking towards me, his hatchet raised as if making to strike me. We called the authorities once we got safely back home, but they never found anybody, or they did and they just didn't tell us. But the officer we spoke to explained his theory. The man was obviously looking to ambush unsuspecting lone travellers for Lord only knows what reason. We all agreed that my girlfriend's quick thinking saved my life, as it had let my potential killer know that I was not out there alone. I moved back into that area recently, so I now drive that highway often. No naked hatchet man sightings yet, but I can tell you that I am definitely extra vigilant now, especially near Deep Creek. And now we move on to the fourth and final true scary horror story of the evening. This one posted by user http_cake. It is entitled Wedding Crashing Kidnapper. This happened when I was 6 years old. I am a 22-year-old female now. My family travelled to British Columbia for my aunt's wedding. I was the flower girl, and the wedding took place at a more remote church ground beside the ocean with beautiful docks. The wedding went off with no issues. I tossed some flowers and scratched at my itchy dress. Following the ceremony, everybody came outside to do photos on the docks. I got distracted playing in the dirt while the wedding party moved down the dock without me. My mum, of course, was distracted talking to her sister, and I was usually glued to her side anyway. While I was drawing in the dirt with a stick, a man in a suit approached me. He didn't look dangerous, and he said he was my cousin, or something of my now uncle. He did look familiar to me, but I didn't know why. He said my mum and auntie had tasked him with watching me while they took photos and stuff. I didn't know any better, so he took my hand and began walking me not back to the church where the reception would be, but towards the dirt road leading out of the property. Everything went fine and dandy, and we were almost up the road where a tree line blocked the exit. Suddenly, I heard my mum scream, "Don't you fucking touch my daughter," and turned around to see her running down the dock towards us. Now for context, my mum is a heavier woman, and that is the fastest I have ever seen her run in my life. She looked absolutely foaming at the mouth, enraged. The man squeezed my hand like he was going to make a break for it, but I guess he decided otherwise. When the rest of the guests saw my mum screaming and running, and they also started making a beeline for us too, he jumped into the woods beside the dirt road. Nobody recognized him, and when the police came, There wasn't much they could do, because a statement from a scared 6-year-old isn't very useful. The police ended up assigning someone to sit at the only entrance to the property while the reception took place, in case he came back for whatever reason. My mum kept me glued to her and left a little early with my brother and I. It dawned on me when we were going back to the hotel that the man was from the hotel. I had seen him looming about the swimming pool and in the continental breakfast room. Apparently, he was eavesdropping, and someone found out we were going to that wedding. I told my mum, and she was furious. She told the hotel front desk and got me to tell them what he looked like. With the key information that he was wearing a suit, they told us that he had already checked out in a hurry and left. They said they would file a police report with the information he had provided when checking in, although he paid for the room with cash, so there was no knowing if he was using an alias. My mum decided to take us to another hotel on the other side of town that night. The police never followed up with her, and a few days later we went back to my home. I never understood how much danger I had been in until I got a little older. Thank you for listening this evening, and I hope you all have a lovely Halloween.